Good afternoon and welcome to CEC Gurukul lecture. In today's session on symbolic expression, we have with us Ms. Manisha, who is going to interpret the lecture in sign language. For discussion today, the topic is Introduction to Sociological Research, Part 2. In this lecture, we are going to understand sociological research, the promise of sociological research, the relationship between theory and method, and how we can have ethics in social science research, plagiarism, and so on and so forth. So, to start off, let us understand the promise of sociological research. The promise is a chapter from C. Wright Mill's work, The Sociological Imagination. In this, C. Wright Mill says that the discipline of sociology is focused primarily on the ability to distinguish between individual personal trouble and the public issues of one social structure. So he was saying that there is a relationship between biography and social. So what an individual is, to a large extent, depends on the society. So to understand any social problem, a sociologist needs to understand the interaction relation between biography and social history. According to C. Wright Mills, what occurs in anyone's individual life is interrelated with society as a whole. So many a time we've heard that if a child is growing up in a family where parents are in an abusive relation, the child tends to become a deviant. So it is connected to your social context. The sociological imagination gives us the ability to understand the correlation of one's biography, history, and tradition, along with the knowledge of social and historical impact or influences society may have on that person or group of people. So that is the task of a sociological research. You need to understand the relation between biography, history, and tradition. And this relation is not static, it undergoes change. So you need to imagine as a sociologist how the relations are going to get affected. C. Wright Mills believed to truly fulfill the promise of social science, sociologists had to focus on substantial society-wide problems and relate those problems to the structural and historical features of the society and culture that they navigate. One of the strengths of promise of sociology, which is the sociological imagination, is it helps to see and think outside the box. So there is a debunking motive. As a sociologist, one has to remove the layers after layers and go behind the reality. So what is evident to everyone is not necessarily the truth. So you have to unbox, or you have to move outside the box and arrive at a better understanding to gain benefit that a person can earn in a society. And whenever we do research, the promise of sociological research says that we need to have three important questions. So according to Mill, no social study that does not come back to problem of biography, of history and intersection within a society has completed its intellectual journey. So every study has to come back to the central question of the interrelation between biography and history. So what are the three important questions that any sociologist who has imaginations or is aware of the sociological work ask? Number one, what is the structure of this particular society as a whole? Now, when we talk about structure, it applies network of relationship and pattern of behavior between individuals and between institutions. So you need to first ask this question, because if structure changes, its impact on individual will change, the biography will change. Number two, where does society stand in human history? This question basically helps us to trace through this evolution or progress and development that a particular society has undergone. Number three, what varieties of men and women now prevail in this society and in this period. So basically, when we talk about now this, it is able to help us to understand the past. So the past and the present have to be connected. Similarly, the biography and history has to be connected in order to arrive at a holistic understanding of society. Now, when we try to do research, many a time people understand that it is a process of theory building. But we need to understand the difference between theory and research and how they are related to each other. So, what is theory? Theory can be defined as generalized thinking or a conclusion of something which is a result of an analysis. So, can be the findings of a research converts into a theory. So, in physical sciences, theories are always scientifically proven with evidence. So, when the hypothesis is proved true, it leads to theory building. In sociology, a theory is a way to explain different aspects of social interaction and create a testable proposition. So, you have a functional theory. So, the functional theory explains the functions of the structure, and that will be different from a conflict theory, which will talk about how the structures can be dysfunctional. A theory can be used as a tool to understand, explain, and make predictions about concepts. So, we have a number of concepts. If we were to understand the concept, we need a theoretical insight. For instance, gender. So, we need say a feminist theory of gender, and that would help us to understand the relation between men and women in society. Theories tell and explain us what something is. However, theories are just conceptual framework. They are just the outcome of certain research and helps us to understand a concepts. They are not taken for granted assumptions, or they are not to be uniformed or universalized statement. It's kind of subject to critique and subject to change. Research is a systematic, controlled, and empirical investigation of a hypothetical proposition about the presumed relation among natural phenomena. Research is a way of expanding existing knowledge base and create knowledge. So, if we see and search, it helps us to search again. So, search again and increase knowledge on the topic in which you are interested. Research is creative work and helps to generate new knowledge, and that is the reason why research is being done. Research has to create a new theory or a new body of knowledge. It generally precedes theory, but this is a kind of chick-hen relation. It kind of precedes theories, but to do research, we need certain theoretical insights. Where are the types of research? Number one is evaluation research. Now, this evaluation research is mostly used in the government organization and places where you need to evaluate a certain program or a policy, whether it was effective or it was not effective. So, you have a rural health mission program and you want to do a research to find out whether it helped the people. So, you will do a evaluative research. It is also used in marketing campaign to evaluate the launch of a new product. and depending on the research, feedback of the research, the product can be improved. The second type of research is action research. So this is basically based on activism. Some amount of action has to be done. So those who are being studied participate in the research process. It seeks to raise consciousness and awareness and is directly to political action or maybe kind of NGO, civil society action. Then the third is social impact assessment. Now, social impact assessment is to kind of find out the consequence of a planned change. What was the impact of say policy. For instance, we have the monetary policy of the government, or you have the new education policy. How does it affect individual? Is the education getting spread out to the needy, or is it getting restricted by the class factor? So we will understand the impact of the policy. Now, what is the link between theory and research? Theory and research are in a dialectical relation. Dialectical in the way they are two-way relation. One impacts the other, and the other influences the first. And transactional relationship, where theory determines what questions are to be asked in research, what data to be collected, and what to do with once collected. And research finding then confirm or challenge the accepted theories. So you need to kind of also begin with theory. You need to have a set of understanding or a theoretical perspective to begin your research. The best theories are those that have been substantiated or validated in the real world by research. So that is why it's a two-way relation. Exploratory research leads to the birth of new theory as new phenomena and questions arise, or as practitioners discovers ways that existing theories does not fit reality. So exploratory, you are exploring, and when you are exploring, you tend to find out new aspect, new dimensions, and this leads to the construction of new theory. What are the elements of theory? The basic elements of building a theory are concepts, variable, statements, and format. Although there are diverse claims about what makes a theory, these are common to all of them. So what are concepts? A concept is an idea that is thought through carefully, defined, and made explicit in a theory. So in a feminist theory, the concept could be sex, could be gender, could be masculine, feminine. So theories are built from concept. Concepts denotes phenomena, and concepts help in isolating the features of the world that are considered important at that instant. Concepts are structured from definition. So definition allows us to visualize the phenomena that is denoted by the concept. So you have the concept of caste. It helps us to understand the phenomena of untouchability. Concepts enable researcher to see the same thing and to understand what it is that is being studied. So concept will remain uniform to all researchers because they are kind of defined. They have already been theorized and defined by the previous scholars. Variables. Variables are attributes which are fixed for each thing but which are observed to be different level, amount or strength across sample and other aggregate group. Variable measure a social construct like age, class, etc. in a way which render it amenable to numerical analysis. The important feature of variable is that it is capable of reflecting variation within population and is not constant. And that is why the research, to find out how the variables are kind of defined differently, interpreted in a different way, and kind of influences the population differently. The third is statements and formats. The concepts of a theory must be connected to each other, and this connection between concept is a theoretical statement. So in research, the first thing is problem statement. So you kind of arrive at a statement by connecting the different concepts and theories that one is interested in studying. These statements specify the way in which events represented by concepts are interrelated, and at the same time they provide an interpretation of how and why events should be connected to each other. When these theoretical statements are grouped together, they constitute a theoretical format. Along with the statement and format, we also understand what is a hypothesis. A hypothesis is merely an idea. It's a tentative idea or a tentative statement which has not been studied or which has not been proved. These are certain assumptions before you start your research, certain taken assumptions, certain ideas which exist in society. Once the hypotheses are analyzed and proved to be correct, they are recognized as theory. But not all hypothesis becomes theory. For instance, there is an assumption that when industrialization was taking place in India, joint family was breaking down to nuclear weapons. A.M. Shah, a sociologist, did a research in Gujarat and came out with the idea that this assumption is incorrect, and therefore he formulated a theory that it is not necessarily joint family breaking down into nuclear family, but it is a change in the composition and size of family. So this is the relation between hypothesis and theory. We also have paradigms. What are paradigms? A few theories provide broad perspective that help to explain different aspects of social life, and these are called paradigm. Paradigms are philosophical and theoretical framework used within a discipline to formulate theories, generalization, and the experiment performed in support of them. Three paradigms which have dominated sociological thinking are structural, functionalism, conflict theory, and symbolic interactionism. We have done these three paradigms in the previous lecture. Now, when we come to social science research or sociological research, what is very important is ethical issues, because sociologists are studying almost every element of human behavior. So many a time it becomes a question of ethic, whether we can study such an aspect, because we also study the private aspect, individual choice, desires. So whenever research involves human subject, we have to follow certain ethical standard, because people are not guinea pigs. We need to take the consent. We need to kind of inform them about the objective of the research and what are we going to do with the finding. So the subjects have to be taken into confidence before the research is being done. One of the most important ethical guidelines in sociological research is privacy and confidentiality. Many a time there are certain questions that an individual does not want to share, is not comfortable into sharing. So then how does a researcher discusses this or does a research on such issues? When a sociologist does a research, it is the first guideline to protect the privacy and confidentiality of their subject. They have to make sure that the findings are not going to be used to blackmail the respondents or for any other negative use. When a survey is used, the data must be coded anonymously. Even in qualitative research, we say we use case studies, but we use a pseudonym. We do not use the original name of the respondent. Anonymity must be maintained and fake names are generally used. Ethics are fundamental concern for sociologists when it comes to doing research. Sociologists are expected to follow ethical guidelines, requires openness, honesty, truth, and the protection of research subject, their studies can at times elicit great controversy. So a researcher has to be very careful in maintaining ethics. Now we come to plagiarism. Once the research has been data collected, analyzed, then it is to publish a report or a research paper. This is the most crucial part because your finding is going to be shared. So plagiarism is important. Plagiarism is the practice where intentionally or not intentionally one uses the content of someone else's. So in academic exercise, plagiarism is kind of considered sinful. You cannot copy someone else's ideas or someone else's work and show it as your own. There are several software to test the plagiarism, and there are several ways in which we can avoid plagiarism. How do we avoid plagiarism? We have to be a little cautious in citing the source. Wherever we have used someone's work, chapter, article or book, we need to cite the reference. Copying text from a source and pasting it in your paper is avoidable. One should never copy. You need not even copy the idea. Getting someone to write your paper is also plagiarism. So you should do your own research and make the effort to write your own research paper. Buying a paper and turning it as your own. Submitting a research paper you wrote for someone else. So by kind of being cautious about plagiarism and doing our own work, being ethical in our research and following the steps or process of research, a sociological research enables us to build a theory and contribute to knowledge building. With this, I come to an end of this lecture. Thank you.